Hello. We are letting the attendees fill the room here. Just give us a minute or two to get going. Glad you could all join us today. I see at least one excited reaction. I'm glad you're all here. We were just talking about how excited we were. And again, we're gonna give it just a minute or two to let everybody filter in before we kick off. So um, yeah, thank you for being here. Maybe while we wait, if any of you have questions that are top of mind, please feel free to put them in the chat now. We, have a fair amount of topics that we're excited to cover, but welcome inputs from the audience so that we make sure we're covering what you're interested in. Okay, the attendees from the waiting room have all filtered in. I'm sure we'll have some more stragglers coming, which we'll welcome and uh, look forward to seeing more. But I think we can get going. So I am going to quickly introduce myself and then hop off stage to let the stars of the show chat about AI for the next hour. But I just wanted to say thank you for being here. I'm Matt Tower. I work at Whiteboard Advisors, a strategy and communications firm that has worked in the higher ed space, really the whole education space for over 2 decades. We love working in all the different nooks and crannies of education and exploring these types of topics as they grow. And I think this is a really interesting moment in the growth of AI where we know it's something, but we're not exactly sure what it is. And it's up to the campus leaders and the folks that work with them, many of the folks we have on stage today, to figure that out. And hopefully they'll have some interesting insights for you to learn from. And please again feel free to ask questions of them as we go along. That's the goal is for you to leave having learned something and maybe having asked a couple of questions about how to implement this stuff on your campus. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Rick Seltzer of the Chronicle of Higher Education to drive us forward. Yeah, thanks, Rick.
Thanks so much, Matt. I am Rick Seltzer. I'm a senior writer at the Chronicle, where I write the daily briefing newsletter. The goal of that newsletter is to send subscribers all the news and only the news they need to know to start the day in a quick, short, digestible format. We also try to include something to make you think, and then just a little bit of fun so you start off the day on the right foot. You can go to chronicle.com and look around for the daily briefing references if you want to learn more about that. But when I write the daily briefing, I get a high-level preview of most topics or a high-level look at most topics. I don't get to dive deep into complex topics like what the heck is happening with AI on campus right now. So I'm really excited, and I jumped at the chance to interview today's panel or moderate today's panel and hear a little bit more of the details. So to start, let's go to our panelists. I'm going to let them introduce themselves so you can start to get to know them. Asim, let's go ahead and start with you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Pleasure to be here with everyone. So Asim Ali, I'm at Auburn University. I'm the executive director of our Biggio Center. The Biggio Center is a central academic innovation unit, includes several different units within it, including our classic Center for Teaching and Learning, Enhancement of Teaching and Learning. We've got Auburn Online, which I was the founding director of about 11 years ago. That's our classic internal OPM model for supporting our own programs to develop online for credit and non-credit learning. We also have our technology support, instructional technology support, so our campus-wide support for our instructional technology like Canvas, learning management system, as well as other tools that we use. And then we also have a testing center, and we also oversee the in-person classroom buildings. They're some of the newest buildings on our campus over the last 10 years. It includes our what we call EASL, or Engaged Active Student Learning Spaces. So we've got about 5 buildings on campus that feature those types of learning environments for our faculty. So how do we support faculty in redesigning their courses to be able to teach them in a problem-based learning way to maximize the use of those spaces? That's the purview. That also includes several emerging technologies such as virtual and augmented reality. So we oversee the initiative for that. I also oversee the AI in terms of the education impact, but also other areas like research and how do we use it in some of our business processes. And then I also support our work around micro-credentials. So look forward to the chat today. Thanks so much.
So big portfolio puts my job description to shame. Tara, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow. Hi, everyone. It's just such a delight to be here with this panel today. My name is Tara Hughes. I am the Chief Information Officer here at Cal State University, Monterey Bay. I oversee all of our technology on campus, which certainly includes our teaching and learning and innovations. Currently, we have an agreement with OpenAI that the CSU notably launched earlier this year. And so we have been fast at work for implementing and educating our campus community on how to utilize that and learning a lot in the process. Prior to being a CIO, I had the pleasure of working at a previous campus with a different vendor utilizing a chatbot, and just so happened that it intersected with COVID. And so what initially started out as a summer melt retention tool very quickly turned into what we like to call an empathy engine, and really used that chatbot to understand the student experience through a pretty tumultuous time. And that has certainly continued to inform kind of my approach in how we guide and lead our technology strategy moving forward. Really excited to see kind of how AI develops, but always keeping the human at the center. And that would essentially, I think, sum up my philosophy in general about technology and higher education. So really excited to be here and chat about all things AI.
Thanks, Tara. And now to our third panelist, Dhruva.
Thanks, Rick. Hey, everybody. My name is Dhruva, and I'm on the higher education team here at Adobe. And we work with higher ed institutions all over the world and really are focused on and passionate about building products and programs that impact faculty, staff, and students, and especially in this rapidly changing learning and career landscape shaped by AI that my fellow panelists kind of alluded to. And I'm especially thoughtful about this concept of equitable access to new technology and how do we help our campuses channel creativity and productivity for everybody. And so really excited to be here and ready for a great conversation.
Great. Thank you so much for doing the hard work of introducing yourselves. Makes my job a lot easier. One thing that also makes my job easier, those of you who are watching in the audience, please do submit questions using the Q&A function. I want to reiterate that. I will try to work them in as we go. And anything that we don't get to fit in, I'll try to reserve a little time at the end of our talk before we have to go to field as many as possible. We already have one, and I promise I will get to that. But just to start out, I'd actually like to do a little table setting question first. And I wonder if each of you might give a snapshot from your perspective of where we are today on campuses. We hear so much and read so much about how this technology is affecting student work and raising questions about student work and what happens in the classroom. Where else? How else do you see AI being used on campus today? Or if it is student work, please don't shy away from discussing that. Just so let's start in the same order that we did with introductions, and then we can kind of play off each other a little more as we go. So Asim, where are you seeing AI being used on campus today?
Well, certainly by far, right at the cusp of where things are starting to get hot in terms of AI. I think we're still not at the inflection point that people think that are anticipating. So most of the usage is in terms of conversation around how are faculty incorporating it into their coursework. But where we've seen tremendous growth, we've got this unit on campus that we've done some central funding for called the Tiger Tech Leaders. Essentially, it's about 850 people on campus that meet every other Friday morning to basically discuss how they're using different AI tools to enhance their work, to make advancements. So we're starting to see, we've been focused on that AI literacy aspect. How do we make sure we democratize access to the tools and then provide resources to allow people to upskill faculty, professional staff, students, graduate students. And then we've actually started working with K through 12 teachers and administrators as well. And then we've got an effort around, continuous learning kind of effort. So, working with our Ollie program, for example, to make sure there's a course available for retirees that live in the area. So we've been really focused on this idea of, can we just make sure that everyone in the community that is engaged and different stakeholders have access to resources to gain and learn about just what AI is. And we've seen a broad adoption from that perspective. Where I see things going next is just natural progression from there. Once you democratize that kind of access, is people start talking about other process types of improvements. So, what can we start doing better, faster, with better quality and lighter workload? And those are the conversations that I see starting on campus now.
Sarah, something similar, or do you have a different perspective out on your coast?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's similar. I think, especially from an administrative perspective, and you're seeing budgets tightening, and positions that maybe you can't afford to backfill and letting those go vacant. A little bit more of a focus on how do we maximize productivity, how do we become more efficient, and how can we leverage the tools that we have at our disposal, like AI, to be able to do more with less. And I kind of don't love that phrase, but I do think that it applies in the situation where we're trying to work smarter, and use what we have available to us. And I think what's been interesting from the faculty perspective is that it really wasn't a reasonable expectation to have them incorporate leveraging AI in the classroom without providing a tool for them which they could play with and use and understand and advocate for improvements as they see fit in the classroom. So I think that's been it's still very much in development, but it's an important part of the conversation.
Now, when you say it's not reasonable or it wasn't reasonable to ask them to play around with it without giving them a tool. So in my own job, right, when I've wanted to look at incorporating AI into the workflow, I've been very careful. Well, I don't want to use one of the public-facing chatbots that may actually be harvesting the data. And, in some cases, I'm working with sensitive things. Is it similar to that, or are there other considerations that you're talking about there?
That's certainly an important one, and it was one of the most critical factors in the agreement that we have with OpenAI, is that they're not using our data to train their LLM. And that gives some protections, and hopefully addresses some concerns that we're even seeing students really voice about what is being used, and is that with their consent. So that is certainly an important aspect of it. But I also think too, when we're asking folks to leverage tools on campus, we typically provide those tools to them. And I don't see how AI would be any different. But we also want to make sure that their exposure to that is put with some guardrails around it so that they can do it safely and securely. And so I think it's both. But certainly, as we're looking to be more innovative and really disrupt pedagogy in a lot of ways, I think it's only fair to expect that we provide them tools to explore what that looks like. But again, to advocate for how they want that to continue to develop and where it should go, because our faculty are the ones who are going to be able to speak to that most meaningfully, and they should be part of developing kind of how that shows up in the teaching and learning space.
Great, great. And then, Dhruva, I do want to give you a chance to jump in on that question. Where are you seeing AI being used on campus today, either in the faculty or other areas?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a timely question. We actually have some research coming out in partnership with Forrester on that very question. And we're seeing, across this panel of um, kind of surveyed higher education institutions that it's really streamlining some of the operational and administrative workflows, like my fellow panelists kind of talked about, things like admissions, financial aid processing. Like really, we keep hearing this phrase, make time for meaningful work. And the vast majority of our higher education respondents actually identified things like data synthesis and reporting as the most valuable case because it automates repetitive tasks like summarizing large documents, generating citations, allows staff, instructors, and everyone associated with this massive machine that is a campus, right? The helps them get more meaningful work done. And we also heard themes of knowledge management and synthesizing all the unstructured data that we've collected over the years, and also supporting, to Tara's point, supporting faculty to start making more time to focus on pedagogy rather than administrative tasks. So a lot of echoing that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from my own perspective, I was recently at a business officers conference, and one of the things that caught my ear was discussion of being able to use some of these models, enterprise level models, to track dollars in a way that we never could. And that kind of opened my eyes beyond what just we always think about as the LLM, the chatbot, kind of what other applications there might be. Having said that, we did get an early question that I think I want to get out here, because we did talk a little bit about faculty versus other uses. Do you see differentiation between what campus leaders want to see in AI versus what faculty want to do for them and for students? So that's basically setting up campus leaders. We'll take that from any level that you want to take it. But campus leaders versus faculty, hopes, dreams, desires for this technology. Does anyone have immediate thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's actually a alignment at Auburn, and that's what, first of all, if anybody thinks that they know what AI should be doing for them already, I'd like to hear that, because I think we're all at the somewhat experimental stage of where this technology is headed. What are the best kind of returns on our time? Tara made a really good point about making sure people have access to the tool. I think one thing that we've learned at Auburn is, regardless of the technology, we absolutely have to invest in faculty development and resources. The most valuable resource we can give our faculty is time to be able to implement and suggest and think about new ideas. I teach in the business school as well, so I have 130 students every semester in an Intro to Information Systems Management course, and AI is a part of the course that I'm teaching. And what I want to do is be able to say, okay, I want my students to know what are those boundaries as we know them today in terms of where AI could be beneficial for them in terms of automating or augmenting their work, but what are those skills that they absolutely must focus on, and what are those critical thinking what can they do critically think about those skills that they absolutely must focus on, that are uniquely human skills that AI is not going to be threatening anytime soon. And so being able to give every faculty member that time and that space to, from their disciplinary perspective, know where those boundaries are is an important part of how we think about implementing these AI tools. So we're lucky at Auburn, our faculty have that resource in most cases. Now we continue to work with the leadership to say, hey, we should give more and better time, whether it's at the department level or at the college level. Their faculty have the resources that they need. One of the things we did early on was we developed a course called Teaching with AI that allowed our faculty at Auburn to and graduate students to basically go through a asynchronous resource, high quality course that we had developed that said, here's how to understand the technology, here's how to think about partnering with your students. We actually, in our partnership with the Southeastern Conference, made that available broadly across all of the campuses. All of the Alabama Community College system schools use it as well. Instructors use it, use that resource. And then it's used by about 15,000 other instructors, around 150. If you sign up for the EDUCAUSE course on Teaching with AI, that's what that course is. And what we see is there's a tremendous focus on making sure faculty have access to the resources. And that's a lot of where the administration seems to be as well.
Yeah. Do you have to tinker with that course or those resources frequently? The technology is changing so quickly. I mean, I think that would be a big fear when putting something like that together.
The best part about it all is that quality teaching is evergreen, right? Like, so the tech comes and goes and evolves. And if we can get faculty understanding and interested in what are some good, just sound teaching practices and where does the technology fit in after that, of course, we tweak the course and modify it as warranted. But largely, quality teaching is quality teaching, whether it's face-to-face or online or whatever it may be. So making sure that faculty understand, instructors understand where that fits in, and how does this technology impact their work, that's the best outcome.
Great. Tara, Dhruva, back to the original question. Differentiation between what campus leaders want to see versus what faculty want to see?
I can share my perspective from talking to faculty members, and I'd love to hear Tara's as well. Faculty I've talked to, I think they kind of split along a line of, hey, our job is to they're a little more skeptical when it comes to adopting AI in teaching and learning, because our job is to make sure students are becoming higher order thinkers, developing critical thinking. We want to make sure that we're not just, sometimes the hard way is the right way to increase learning outcomes. Other faculty I've talked to, the other side of that split is, hey, this is a tool like any other. If we implement it the right way and we do our job as instructors, as institutions, we can make sure they're using this as a career-ready skill that's just going to help them kind of get to really grow even faster. And so it's really interesting seeing how that split has kind of shifted as these conversations have developed. And
yeah, I mean, I would echo what both Asim and Dhruva have said. From my vantage point, just with any other tool that we implement, there's a real eagerness to see results and outcomes. But the challenge anytime you're innovating is that we're still figuring out what those outcomes and results should be. And so we're still very much experimenting with that. I do think that the thing that continues to surface that is a little bit different than some tools that we've adopted over the years is more of the ethical consideration, the environmental impact, and that makes things a little bit murkier for people to kind of dive in deep and enthusiastically all the time. And I think it's an important element that we're going to have to continue to wrestle with. I don't think that's going to go away. And my hope, though, is that when you have, the diverse thought on all sides, that we can come out of this better for it because we're participating and engaging as opposed to sitting on the sidelines and letting someone else decide. So I think there is work to be done there. I think there's overall alignment, but there's different perspectives in terms of what the challenges might be.
Yeah. Has anyone been surprised by places that either have not adopted a technology or an AI technology that seems like it makes a lot of sense, or that have actively resisted it, right? Like me when my phone pings about a new topic. No, I don't want to do that right now. It could be as simple as that, or kind of a longer term entrenchment. Any corners of non-adoption that surprised you so far?
Not surprised, but I do want to say that every time we've had faculty, even as recently as last week, my favorite is when it's passive aggressive comments on Facebook when I know they're talking about us and the technology. But anyway, I have enough friends where I find out about it and then I reach out to them. In every instance, I found the critique or resistance to be thoughtful at its surface, at least, I mean, at the background of it. So I think it's what I think we need to learn is we do need those voices as part of our conversations. It is way too early in the technology for people to be self-selecting out of the conversation and to not be participating in, particularly when they have concerns about how the technology is being used or implemented or suggested. We're a Canvas school. Recently, Canvas announced the whole AI tool thing at InstructorCon, and I immediately was seeing faculty like, never in my life am I enabling, and I was like, we're not going to require you to enable anything. So, but it's important to have those conversations of why and where those concerns are, because that's how we'll be able to make sure those of us in position to bring those tools to faculty and ask them to consider using them and see about using them in terms of with their students or other business processes that we may be interested in. I think it's important for us to know where those concerns are so that we can be thoughtful about the kinds of technologies we're experimenting with.
Yeah, I would say I've been really surprised by the reticence that students have shown in using AI. And I have a few college-age daughters, and they are not the most enthusiastic about AI for legitimate reasons. It's honestly really great insight into understanding their perspective, but You have this generation of students who very willingly adopt TikTok and other platforms that make no secret about using their information. And so that's been a really interesting contrast, I think, to where they decide they're okay with giving up that information versus where they're not. And then, there's lessons to be learned too, and even how we're socializing and communicating to our student population about both the merits and the drawbacks of AI, and having those honest ethical conversations and inviting them to ask those critical questions. I think it's very easy to miss that opportunity and just say, you need to use this tool, it's going to be important. But I do think that inviting them to have the critical discussions about the challenges as well as the opportunities is going to give a better chance for them to actually engage in a meaningful way. But there's a lot that have opted out of engaging with AI. And I think in order to get them to even participate in any kind of meaningful way, we're going to have to up our game in how we engage with them and talk about the use of AI, because their suspicions are high. And even though like our agreement says, no one is going to use your information to train the LLM, it's secure, the suspicion is now, eyed towards the administration. Are you watching what I'm saying and doing? And is this going to be evaluating, my behavior in a way that might come back, in a punitive way? And so I think there's still some trust building that has to happen as we introduce new technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll zero in on a corner of the administrative side from the research that was surprising to me. I think AI adoption actually in legal and compliance came across as underutilized. On surface level, you'd expect streamlining contract analysis and going through all this text and ensuring regulatory compliance would be a perfect use case for what AI is good at. But the research actually revealed that, look, the errors, the cost of errors in this would actually outweigh the benefits, right? There'd be significant risks to getting that wrong. And so institutions came across as cautious due to concerns about the data security and reliability. And so I think the other panel said, I think it comes down to ethical concerns. Are my teams enabled to understand what ethical usage of AI entails? Data security, are I using the right tools? Are they training on our data? What happens to my information once I upload a document or submit a query? And also just trust and accuracy, right? You read a lot about AI hallucinations. We read a lot about a tool that's built on this premise that it's saving you time can save you time if you're constantly double, triple checking the outputs, right? And so it's something that we're hearing across campuses, faculty, students, and staff. And it's something that we're being really thoughtful about as we kind of build our own products.
Great point on time saving. That applies to journalism as well, in case anyone was wondering. File clean copy, and it saves everyone a lot of time because it's a lot easier to file the clean copy than it is to go back and fix the problems. So Tara, you referenced that Cal State has a deal under which with several tech companies. And I want to start with you on this question because you've seen this now for a few months at scale. But certainly we'll bring in our other panelists too. How are you seeing use actually spread? So you referenced some student resistance. So do we need a certain number of their peers who use it before they use it? Does that also apply to back office functions, to faculty members? Do you need to see folks who have a suggested tool for a specific project? Do they need to feel ownership of it? Are there any kind of conditions, or maybe it's more organic? Kind of what patterns might you see as you've watched this spread or not spread across different parts of campus?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, we're still early in the process. From my vantage point, it seems like it's all of the above. When we introduced, the AI tool that we had come to an agreement with, which, by the way, our campus would not have been able to afford that if it wasn't a larger system-wide agreement. And, so again, going back to equity and access is huge. But, trying to have workshops and educational opportunities for every campus community, students, faculty, and staff in their respective areas, to listen and learn what are their conceptions of what AI is and does, and is there a gap between what we understand and, is there a way that we can meet in the middle? I think that's been really helpful. But, you know, the classic assumption is that students only use it for cheating. And that's a legitimate concern. I think it's pretty myopic. There are a lot of other use cases. Again, college age students using AI to better understand degree progress. What do they still need to take? Sometimes it's hard to get a hold of an advisor. That has been tremendous. And, you see kind of these different areas where there's impaction on an administrative side. And, a lot of students, first gen or not, don't necessarily understand our nomenclature. They don't understand who does what. Why do I need to go to this department versus this department? So you're definitely seeing uses in those cases because it eliminates having to pick the right path or the right office to go to and ask a question. But also, as I was kind of workshopping this with one of my daughters, she made a comment like, wow, this was so much easier. I don't feel like I'm being judged for asking a stupid question. And I think that is going to be how it will continue to show up for students, is that when they see the benefit of being able to have more vulnerability in the questions that they ask and the dialogue that they have, that's where you then start to see the increase in engagement, at least from that perspective. From the staff and administrative side, it's very much a either checking my work or helping me kind of galvanize my thoughts and put them in a cohesive way. I've had a number of folks that I've worked with, even at past campuses, where English is their second language. And so utilizing the AI tool to help make sure that the email that they're writing actually hits all of the points that they want to make in a way that makes them feel proud of the communication that they're sending out. So there's a few, but again, we're still learning and workshopping.
Other perspectives on the way that it spreads on campuses?
I think it ties in with one of the questions that's in the Q&A, asks about just, what are the outside of the classroom opportunities? And I think that anytime that you have innovative tools, if we give access to those tools and let people tell us where they think there are opportunities, that's going to give us the best opportunity to make thoughtful decisions about what makes the most sense. I mean, there are certainly pain points on all of our campuses, like, how long does it take to get reimbursed for travel and things like that? And, got to check every last receipt. Well, is that work that AI can speed up and augment for the person who's responsible for those kinds of things? So I think there may be some certainly like kind of obvious things, and those are the things that we've already invested in. But there may be other kind of hidden ideas out there until we give people the agency to say, hey, you can go through this training course that we have, and if you complete it, you're going to get access to these suite of tools that you're welcome to try, and you're going to have the opportunity to share back how you're using it. And because we take interest in that, and then that's going to give you a platform to suggest ways of bringing, improving your own work. And part of it is improving, like cognitive load and being able to say, if your caseload is too much and we are able to reduce that for like a academic advisor because there's a certain tool, then that's certainly an advantage. So I think being able to give people agency to suggest those back rather than expecting that to be a top-down thing would be the best, better approach.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to echo that pretty strongly. I think like it's a combination of thoughtful strategic partnerships, pilot programs, and kind of that co-creation. I think that word is really important. Even Sarah, I love how CSU's partnership involves co-creating those use cases because everyone feels involved. You're taking in the institution's needs, you're taking in what faculty and staff say they need, and it's that overarching vision of equitable access, right? So pilot programs might be you're testing these tools in specific departments. What does it look like in admissions? What does it look like in a first-year writing program before you scale campus-wide? You're identifying faculty and administrative champions to kind of shape success stories and give inspiration so people know where to start. And it's also, I think, this idea of iterative deployment. You have these constant feedback loops. You're making sure everyone is being brought along. You can't have equitable access unless you're kind of lifting all boats, so to speak. So love that.
Yeah. Now, someone asked about how you evaluate specific tools or products to put in front of different constituencies. That's new to a lot of our viewers today. It would certainly be new to me. Is it you go out and you do a market scan? Again, these tools are changing so quickly. Do you do an RFP? Is it who you can get an affordable deal with? Like, what does the process of evaluating a tool look like for each of your offices?
I'm happy to jump in. I think at this point, at least for a lot of it, there's a couple of things that I like to point out. One is, yeah, I mean, cost has to be a part of it. If we're going to start throwing out millions of dollars on just software licensing fees, that just has too much of a risk in terms of not being able to show a good return on that investment. I think we have to be better stewards of our dollars. And so where it makes sense in terms of thoughtful investment approach with some kind of a way of measuring how is this tool actually creating an impact and being able to provide that professional development or faculty development that it takes to be able to make effective use of it. That's going to be a key part of it. The second thing is we can't be signing up for every tool. One of the most valuable resource after people on any of our campuses is our data. And that, just about all of these major systems that are out there have kind of eaten up, if I can say it that way, eaten up all the data that is available. And so they're hungry for the data. And the only data that's kind of left is the stuff that's behind our locked boxes on institutions like ours or at, corporations and stuff. And so that's why it's really important to be thoughtful about which companies we are partnering with and that they are able to assure that our data is not part of a training algorithm. But on the other side, if Fly By Night Incorporated comes by and says, oh, we've got a tool that'll completely change everything for you, and turn over all of our data, and all of a sudden they disappear, then that's a risk to the organization. So I don't think it's worthy to go out and just sign up for whatever. There's some thoughtful resources and thoughtful partners to consider partnering with and seeing how they can support implementation for you, and then get some measurable results in terms of not just return on cost investment, but also return on is it leading to better learning outcomes if that's the outcome? Is it leading to better retention in terms of our employees if that's an important outcome? And those kinds of things are important in terms of all the different kinds of returns.
Maybe a complimentary question that I should have asked first. How do you, for those of us looking to use AI to cut costs, improve quality, and speed up operations, not in the classroom, but in university administration, how do we identify and implement those improvements we'd like to make? Sorry, this is probably a bit of a question that comes before the one I just asked about finding the tools to fix or to address the issue. How do you identify the issues that you'll use tools to address?
That's the part that I spoke to earlier about certainly, democratizing as much as we can access to different, to the resources and tools, and then making sure that it's not a megaphone telling people to use them, but actually some kind of a way that invites a listening session back where people can share how they're using those tools to make improvements. And I think for administrators, that's the best way to identify where the opportunities lie for your unique institutional culture that may exist, or opportunities that are unique to your institution, where you'll see, because it's not just, okay, can I throw money at it and fix it? It's also, does it align with the people that we have in that unit? Are they willing to implement these suggested improvements or innovations? And then is it a benefit to the institution or to the use case in that scenario? I mean, those are going to be unique for different institutions in many cases. And so being able to listen back and hear what people are doing once they have access to certain tools is going to lead to the follow-on projects. So certainly that's what's happening in Auburn.
That's a great point. And I think that, a tool or a technology is not going to fix a broken process, right? And so, when you're listening to people saying that a process doesn't work well, a tool is typically going to amplify a bad process. And so being able to understand where are the gaps, where is it disconnecting, and then identify which tool is going to help us build upon that improvement. I think there's a real knee-jerk reaction for any kind of tool, and AI included, if you just throw that at the problem, that it'll magically solve it, and it won't. It still takes some critical thinking and evaluation of, again, the people involved, what the process is, and what are we trying to achieve. And that will look different depending on, what those needs are. I think that back to your earlier question about, how does this get socialized? I mean, it really does, I think, find its legs when it is something that is more grassroots and not top down. And so by being able to really understand the pain points, not just from the administrative top level, but every, bottom all the way up to the top, I think that does give a better opportunity to understand which tools might offer the most value add, if you were to adopt them. The other thing that I would just say, though, is that, once upon a time, IT was really the gatekeeper of all things technology, and we introduced, what people should use. And that has completely been flipped upside down. And so some of the best ideas and the introduction to tools doesn't come from IT, it comes from other folks across the campus. And so I think being able to welcome those suggestions and learn what people are using in their personal lives, because those tend to find the most traction. We can't implement all of those things, but I think you'll have more excitement and enthusiasm when you're inviting people to actually contribute what they're using in other areas of life and how that might be able to be a value add on your campus and in the workflows that you have.
There's about half the people that are about to pop a question if Tara's available for their campus as CIO.
Well, and there's, what is it they say? There's no substitute for an engaged employee who's willing to surface good ideas. So I guess we're circling back to that kind of human element of how do you get people, or how do you make sure that people are on board and willing to share kind of what they're doing, as whether it's simple job hacks or good ideas for how they could port something over from a different part of their life. That human element is still going to be a secret sauce, it sounds like. One important question that I'm not sure where to slide it in, but we got it from the audience, so I'm going to ask it about accessibility within the AI tools. The question we received is particularly in the classroom. Are the tools that you're each using cleared for accessibility with your campuses? If not, how are they used in the classroom already? I think there are a number of different ways that you can answer this, from a compliance standpoint, from several other standpoints. Whichever way you're most you have the most build out on would be fine. But what about accessibility? Do you review these tools for accessibility before you set them free? Asim, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, so every tool that's approved, any kind of software that's used at Auburn has to go through our digital security, privacy and accessibility requirements for vetting. But I agree with you that that's minimal. I think that's just checking compliance. If I can step back and just say, we've had students in our classrooms using tools like Notability in order to meet their own accessibility needs for a long time. And so if we can meet them where they are, actually, quite frankly, where they already have been, which is leverage these tools to provide a more appropriate and unique and learning environment or learning resource for all of them and for all learners, then that's an important advancement, actually. So I think it's actually the other way. It's not that these tools are somehow hindering accessibility. It's actually, there are many tools out there that are leveraging machine learning or AI to actually allow us to reach more learners. And that's really been an exciting element for us. We have this program called the Eagles program, which is life skills for students who have low IQ, and those students are coming into Auburn and they're actually learning how, to Tara's point earlier, like being able to ask a question that you feel like, oh my gosh, am I bugging them asking the same question? These students are able to ask questions like, okay, well, help me step by step make this dinner item that I'm trying to learn. And so we're seeing students gain independence more as a result of these tools than we've seen in the past. I think it's incredible from that perspective, actually. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Tara, anything to add from where you sit?
No, I would agree. I think, the reviews that we do meet a certain level of standards, but there's a whole lot more to it than that. And I would agree that really the tools are providing more opportunities to create accessibility than it is taking away, but it doesn't mean that there isn't still some real thoughtful review of everything that we bring in. And if it doesn't meet standards, it doesn't mean that it isn't necessarily adopted. It means that we have to find alternative ways for folks to be able to utilize tools or to be able to behave in the way that they need to behave. And again, I think that just speaks to the philosophy of, regardless of what we do and what we adopt, our mission is to make sure that the environment that we create is welcoming to anyone who wants to participate.
Great.
Can I also add, Rick, really
Yes,
quick
absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
No worries. From the perspective of actually, building these tools, I think it's something that we take really seriously as well, because you can't democratize some of these new technologies and you can't make them equitably available for everyone without taking into account accessibility. And there's also this kind of idea that it can't just be a checklist that you just say, okay, we're compliant for now. And then when these things evolve so rapidly, as we've seen these tools change so quickly, then you're constantly chasing, trying to make your tools accessible. So I think it needs to start from, accessible by design is a really important mantra that we go by. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm over here reading the great questions that we're receiving, and I'm not paying attention to my panelists. I'm failing moderator 101. Great question that we have here for mid-career professionals working in higher ed. Now, we do not have a career role from this questioner, but I think it probably is equally applicable to most job roles. What certificates or upskilling opportunities do you recommend we look into? How do we separate the signal from the noise here? We talked a little bit about some courses that are available to help faculty members. So I wonder about others. Are there good resources or good ways about finding resources that you might be able to recommend? How do you go about this in each of your jobs? How do you separate the signal from the noise?
I use the tube man, you know who I'm talking about, like the little air thing that's like at the used car dealership that's just waving around. Sometimes we feel like that with just all the noise, I guess, if I can say news, noise, take your pick, coming out about due respect to the actual news that Rick does. But it can feel like that we're that tube man that's just waving around in the wind with all the AI stuff that keeps coming at us. One thing I'll point out is that all tube men are grounded. They don't move from where they actually are. So what we have to do is we have to think about, anytime there's that much noise in anything, whether it's AI or anything else, what is the stuff that's grounded? What is the stuff that's not moving? So can you upskill and gain understanding of the basics of the technology? Things like how are AI systems trained and how are they used is not going to change for the time being, at least this generation of models that we have. And so it is a legitimate thing to invest your time in to better understand these technologies from that perspective, because this will shape the foreseeable future in terms of the economy that's shifting. Then from then on, for faculty, certainly I recommend, depending on where your workload is, if your primarily workload is teaching, then I encourage you to identify resources. Like I mentioned, the Teach with AI course, that's taught through various systems. You can, those kinds of courses that help you think about the teaching lens from the perspective of how AI is impacting it. If you're focused primarily on research, then identify the resources that are available in terms of, does your research fit what GPUs are doing? Does it enter you into a whole new research arena in terms of new funding and new possibilities if you're using, large language models or GPUs to be able to supercharge your research. I think there's a lot of opportunity. If you think about if you're early career or mid career, you've got an entire runway ahead of you in terms of how this technology can really just help you lift off into where the world is headed. And quite frankly, we need that. We need that in higher ed. We need that in society. We need that in just where we are. Just, I don't have to regurgitate everything that we know that we're living through, but that is what's missing, is being able to have you engaged and bringing those ideas forward and being the person who's going to see us into that future, quite frankly.
I want to, before I kick it to the next panelist here, I want to emphasize one thing you said, which is that, and I'm paraphrasing here, even though the technology is changing quickly, there is a certain way that this generation is being built or trained. And so there are certain limits or certain ways that you can go about learning about it that are going to be applicable no matter what, right? You'll know if the latest ChatGPT is better at coding and hallucinates more if you've kind of looked at those and know what hallucinations are. Maybe it's a little more complicated than that, but there are certain things that by researching this generation, you're not wasting your time. I think that was a really good point that I just want to underline. Tara, question of upskilling or researching, anything that you'd add to how we go about it?
Man, that was so well put. I do think that it is, at least from my perspective, it's less about certificates, though if that's your druthers, go for it. But I would say just start somewhere, start anywhere, and start where it interests you. And the more that you cast that wide net and really just dive in and try to understand and allow curiosity to be your guide, I don't see it not being a benefit in one way or another. Because I do think that it's really easy to, if we're taking kind of our older lens and applying it to something that is evolving so quickly, it might not stay up to date. And so, you do want to be able to have that experiential understanding and not just, ticking a box saying that you took a course. But that is not to undermine the value that a course could bring. And so I do think that it's much more personalized and is a really politically savvy answer to not answering a question. But I do think that if anything, it just means that you have options and you get to choose. It's not a linear path by any means.
Dhruva, give us a politically unsavvy answer. No, give us your
what I'm known
perspective.
for, right? Happy to. I want to echo everything that was just said. I feel one thing that's really worked for me, and I think some of my peers, is also just practicing, like trying out different tools, like trying out workflows that work for you. I think there's so many emergent use cases that are coming out that haven't been, I think Asim said in the beginning, like nobody has a concrete idea about how to use these tools, and it changes day to day. And I think even in doing some research and talking to different faculty, students, and staff around, our Acrobat AI assistant and asking them how they use it, I went in assuming that there's like 3 areas that they're going to use it, and they completely blew me away with some of the discoveries they had made and some of these emergent use cases they had come up with, from career coaches using it with some of their young professionals looking for a job, and faculty kind of using it to scaffold questions to make sure no learner gets left behind. So I would just say kind of stick with it. Take a course like my fellow panel said if you need to, but I think just explore and kind of share with your peers too, and see what use cases come up.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it's something that those of us in the middle of our careers who maybe have kids and pets and things, it's hard to carve out the time, but probably time well spent, and an important step. So we have only a couple minutes left. As I mentioned, I like the daily briefing to leave folks with something to think about. I'm going to ask a question that is going to leave, there is no right answer, so we're going to think about it, and then we'll have closing remarks. But my question is, maybe it's philosophical, I'm not sure what we should call it. AI's moved into this traditional territory that we see from colleges. Colleges are traditionally about information collection, synthesis, the passing on of knowledge. Some of these AI tools approximate a lot of that work. Does that change the university's value proposition going forward? Is it different? Do we need to put a sharper point on it? Or does it simply reinforce it? How should we think about that? Are universities under pressure here? What is there competition? How are you thinking about that? Dhruva, you're still up on my screen, so I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it's more of a question of, I think, sharpening that focus on the human-centric strengths. I think the one thing I know for sure is that we still need that human element, and that's what higher ed brings to the table, right? I think, yes, AI excels at information synthesis, but I think the university's value proposition is how do we humanize and contextualize those insights? And just yesterday, I was at our first annual student summit for Adobe for Education, and there was a room full of really driven, really passionate young men and women, and they echoed a lot of what we said today. Like, they don't think of AI as a tool to automatically cheat on an assignment, but they do want to be challenged to grow, and they can inherently understand that when the work they're given is meaningful, and that if they're working really hard, that they know they're going to get somewhere with it, and there's value associated with it, right? They have like many of us, they have a sense for what is meaningful work, and they're willing to streamline everything else to make time for that. So I think institutions acting as that human-to-human layer, and they can really provide those critical thinking and ethical frameworks that we talked about today, more personalized learning, mentorships, that those faculty-student interactions are truly irreplaceable, and also equity and access. Institutions play such a critical role in making sure some of these new technologies are benefit everybody, and we can democratize them. So I think they're if anything, I'd say university and higher education is more needed now than ever.
Great. Tara, how are you thinking about the value proposition going forward?
I totally agree. I think that the importance of being able to be a critical thinker as we move through this world is more important than ever. And whether it's AI or anything else that comes up that challenges our presuppositions and makes us ask questions, I think that we all benefit from being lifelong learners in how to ask good, important questions of ourselves and the world around us. And I think for most of us, I'm making an assumption, but I think a lot of that starts in education, where we're taught to ask questions and be critical thinkers and relate to other people and develop a sense of empathy that goes beyond maybe what we, initially start our lives out with. And so I think it's an opportunity for higher education to bring more meaningful value to the way that students are learning and engaging. And I think especially as you see students feeling pretty hopeless, and not seeing where they fit into the big picture, and how they can make their voice heard and have meaning. I think it is more important than ever for higher education to fill that space and give them both the context and the platform to be able to grow and kind of define who they want to be as a meaningful contributor in this world. And frankly, we need that more than ever before. So I think the value is high.
Right. And Asim, last word on value proposition?
Excellent points by both of my colleagues. But I mean, if you think that if your institution's role in teaching is content delivery, then your days are numbered. But we have to realize that learning has moved past that, and it was never that really for a long time. And so, it's no longer that you have to have a specific textbook. It's no longer that you have to have a 50-minute lecture in order to understand something. Students want more, and learning is more than that. And so, no, I don't think that AI companies are able to replace what institutions like Auburn are uniquely offering, which is the holistic student experience. And learning happens the best learning happens in these kinds of holistic student experiences, where if you have problem-based learning where you're engaging with your peers on the topics of content, experiential learning that help you apply the concepts in a safe environment, and then being able to see how your peers are thinking through those same concepts from a different perspective, that is learning. Being able to put stuff into your brain is not learning. Being able to take it back out and explain it in your own terms is learning. And so if there's AI that's about to do that, I'm interested. And then let's have a conversation about this question again. But for the time being, I think we are we see ourselves as consumers of these tools, and we see ourselves as shapers of where these tools are headed. And we are uniquely positioned as higher education, and especially in this country, to create those environments where people can critically think about the impact of these tools and the way they're going to be shaping society for the time being. And that is something that we should not ever give up, because that is an important part of the conversation. Especially, find me another 400-acre space that has this type of disciplinary expertise and disciplinary diversity and just range of people from novice learners to experts beyond belief. Like, where do we have this? And being able to do it in an environment that allows students to have the experience of a lifetime. I mean, this is, I think, I find it hard to believe that that's going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, wonderful. I want to apologize to everyone who asked a question that we didn't get to. There were a lot of really good questions about wanting case studies for uses. I know my colleagues at the Chronicle have done some really great things in the classroom. I'm hoping we'll do more on the administrative side, or I know we're looking at that more, and I know we've talked about a lot of use cases today. So there is more out there, hopefully more to come. And now, Dhruva, I think you're going to take us home here today.
Yeah, thanks for the privilege of doing that. And thank you everyone for joining us, and to my fellow panelists and the team at Whiteboard for hosting the session. I learned a ton today, and I really love the dialogue. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love to continue it at Adobe for Education's annual flagship conference, EduMax 2025. So it takes place in our San Jose headquarters, and we're going to look at the latest research, hear from thought leaders like Jeff Salingo, showcase our latest product vision, and hear from institutions like all of you who are empowering students to navigate the AI era, learn career-ready skills, critical thinking, and how to visually communicate with impact. Now more than ever, I think we can all agree we need that. So if you're in higher ed leadership, or you're thinking about shaping institutional strategy, including AI strategy, please head over to the URL I think my colleague put in the chat, adobeforeducation.com/edumax-2025, and you can learn more. Thank you so much to everybody.
Okay, I think that brings us home. Please feel free to leave leave the webinar, and we will send a follow-up with some of the links mentioned. And yeah, please feel free to reach out to us if you're looking to learn more about EduMax or any of the other events that we, the Chronicle, Adobe, are putting on in the near term. Cool. Rick, Dhruva, Tara, Asim, thank you. And we will be in touch with you as well, relaying our gratefulness. So please feel free to drop off.
Thanks for the opportunity. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.